So this is a topic I've been wanting to talk about for a little bit. It's not really something that I intended to be its own series. It's more of an interesting way that I found to use some of these tools to help me with my language studies. And so I wanted to share that because I think a lot of people that might be interested in either languages or just any sort of tutoring where AI might be able to help you along could benefit from this because it's really simple, but it's really cool. So let me show you. So this kind of all started when I downloaded Zed, which is a free open source text editor or code editor. So let me just open that up for you now. So you can take a look at what it is. This is the home page. You can download it. It's available for every single platform on the desktop. And it looks just like other IDEs, right? So any kind of code editor. It's very simple. It's very clean, but it is very fast. And so it's very lightweight and it's open source. So you can download it and use it if you want. You could even use it as a scratch pad. I kind of used it to substitute. Previously, I was taking notes on Apple Notes on the desktop, and I ended up just using Zed because it's so fast and lightweight, and it gives you so many other options. This just seemed like a better way to do that. So I was using Zed for a little bit, and it was pretty cool. It had its own AI integration, but honestly, there are other tools that I feel are a little bit better for that. However, as a platform for using AI tools, I think it's really good. So as you know, there are a bunch of different AI tools you can use to write code and do all kinds of things. And I don't know how common it is to use some of these code editing tools to do other things like writing or tutoring. One that came to me was just, what if I just use it as a language tutor? So the other part of this project is the actual coding agent. And there are a couple of them. The biggest ones are obviously the ones from the big AI companies. So we've got Claude Code, which is this one right here, pretty simple to install. But basically what you get is this kind of a thing that you can run in your terminal on your computer. It lets you access whatever that company's models are, and generally it's used for coding. You give it access to a folder with your project files, and then it can search through the files. You ask it to make changes and edits. It's like adding a little coding assistant in your computer. That's really what it's meant to be. But at the end of the day, it's still just that AI agent in your computer. So you can do whatever you want with it. This is only the one from Anthropic, Claude Code. We also have one from Google, which is their Gemini command line interface. And this is what it looks like, text-based. One really nice thing about the Google one is that it has a free tier, which is pretty generous, about 60 requests per minute, 1,000 requests per day with your Google account. So I guess you have to log in, and then they'll just give you that access to the free tier. So if you don't want to spend any money, this is a really good way to play with this and get a lot of value from it without spending a single cent. If you just want to play with it a little bit and see what other kinds of things you can build with this. And then finally, we also have the one from OpenAI, which is they call Codex. And they all look pretty much the same. It's meant to be run in the terminal, so it's pretty text heavy. And so they're all pretty simple to install. So the idea is that you open up Zed, and I'm going to do that right now. So this is Zed. This is what it looks like. As you can see, it's very basic. It's just kind of like a text editor interface. You can open up different panels to view the folder structure, create new files. On the right-hand side, you can then open up a panel to talk to your AI and ask it to make changes and that sort of a thing. So it's all pretty basic, standard stuff, lightweight, very fast, and very clean. So it serves as a really nice platform. Now let me actually open up what my project looks like. And here we are. So once you open up a folder, this is what you get. On the left-hand side, you get the folder structure. Any other folders and files will be shown here. And then you can click on any of them to view that file. So these are all just markdown files. And I have one CSV file. So just like anything you might export from something like Excel or Google Sheets. And then normally what you'd want to do is, let me see if I can find it because I haven't used this in a while. Yeah, I just click this little AI sidebar button. And this is where you would normally just, start typing the commands and getting it to edit your code or write your program or whatever. But what we're going to do instead is we're going to open up the terminal in a panel. So the way that we do that is down here, we've got the little terminal panel button and there's a keyboard shortcut. And then I'm just going to move it over to the right-hand side. I've got the file that I'm looking at and I've got the terminal on the right-hand side. So now what I can do after I've installed one of these, and the one that I've decided to use for this project is Claude Code because it's the one that I had available, but I've tried installing the other ones and they're all relatively similar. They all do the same kinds of things. They can edit your files, read them because they're designed to work with code. Anything that is like that, so any kind of text, they'll be able to handle just fine. So now I just type Claude. I'm just going to say yes, and there we go. So how does this actually work? The first thing I did to set this up is I started with an empty folder No files in here. I just open up the terminal and I opened up Claude, but you can open up any one of these. So the Google one or Anthropic's or OpenAI's Codex, whichever one you want. They all work basically the same way. And what I asked it to do here, this is basically just like the prompt that you get if you were to talk to the AIs on their platforms. The difference is that it now has access to the folder and any files inside of it. I essentially just explained that I wanted it to serve as my language tutor. I asked it to first ask me a series of questions to gauge my current level, and then to generate a daily lesson plan where it would first present me with new information, a certain number of new vocabulary, build those out into lessons, explain the grammar, and then at the end, give me some questions to check that I'm learning and also just to reinforce that. And so I just kind of let it go. And I just basically gave it that prompt. And here's what it came up with. It came up with something called its tutor instructions markdown file. And here we go. Just explains the instructions that it has every single day. So the reason this is important is because they don't have a persistent memory across your different sessions. So every time you open this up in the terminal, it's not going to remember who you are, what lesson you're on, what it's supposed to be doing. It's going to need those instructions from somewhere. So this document serves as the main instructions for the agent every time I open it up every single day. And it also explains this part, which is very important. So I have a couple of different files here that it's created for me. The way that I got it to do that is I just explained what I wanted it to do and then asked it to create the files necessary to handle that. So for example, we have a progress log, which is where it tracks what day we're on, have I completed the lesson for that day, and any kind of issues that I've had, any adjustments that it's needed to make. And then we also have the student profile, which is kind of my personal preferences and goals. And if those shift over time, that's where we'd keep track of them. It's not the most important file in the project, but it's nice to have. And then each day it generates this thing, which is the daily lesson plan. And so it just gives it today's date. And this is just the format that it gives it. It also references this same file, the tutor instructions, this file for you, right? So the agent knows these instructions are for you. And then this last file here is something I added just because I prefer to use. There is a Japanese grammar guide that I prefer to use. And so instead of it coming up with its own system, as part of the prompting, I just asked it and make sure that we use the order that Tai Kim uses in his Japanese grammar guide for the lessons. And so I just decided to make a little CSV file of all the different grammar points. And so the model has something to reference and it's not having to come up with this on the fly. It knows exactly what grammar points we're supposed to cover and in what order. And here's what it actually does every single day. So I open up Zed, I open up the terminal, and then I say, it's going to find the tutor instructions and it's going to find this daily routine. So it's going to first check if it's already made a plan for today. If the plan exists, just basically give me the lesson. If there isn't a lesson, it's going to create one with the structure that it's provided down here. And then it also has instructions on what to do after the lesson is complete. And that's when I just let the AI know, hey, grade my lesson, it'll grade it. And then at the end, it'll update the different files. So for example, it'll update the progress log. And if it needs to update the student profile, it'll also do that. And below that, we have the actual lesson structure. This is what it uses to generate each lesson. And as the days have kind of gone by, I've tweaked it heavily. It started kind of putting things in a weird order. It started asking me questions first and then giving me the grammar and vocabulary somewhere later in the lesson. So I just kind of flipped things around a little bit. And now I've gotten to a point where I feel pretty confident. I could take this even further if I wanted to. In my case, this is just what's working for me. I start with a grammar explanation. It gives me new vocabulary. It gives me new kanji. And I do some reading practice with the new vocabulary that I just learned. Conversation practice. It generates a dialogue for me to practice. And then it gives me the practice exercises. So these are more like fill in the blanks. And then also some writing exercises where it asks me to write out entire sentences, not just, choose option A, choose option B, something a little bit more complex. And then below that are a couple of preferences that it's added as I've kind of tweaked it throughout the days. So I've asked it to focus on increasing the difficulty if I'm not struggling enough, if I'm completing lessons without too many mistakes. Also the type of content. I prefer real world practical situations, not so much classroom situations that you might see in more traditional language study books or grammar books. And then right here below that, it just keeps track of the grammar progression, like what grammar point are we on? So that's basically it. At some point, I had also added a conversation practice where it would use the same vocabulary that I learned, and then we would simulate some sort of a thing like visiting the doctor buying plane tickets or whatever. And it would play the role of either the person selling or the customer or whatever. And then its job was to correct me and show me the different ways that I could have said it if I typed it wrong or whatever. So you could take this and really just run with it based on what you're trying to learn. Languages are just something that are very interesting to me. That's why it's my language tutor and not my math tutor or my geography tutor. But you could set it up to basically teach you just about anything, or at the very least to help you reinforce knowledge. And so here's another file so you can get an idea of what this kind of looks like. This is the progress log. So we've got the date, the status, the different grammar points that we saw, the vocabulary, any notes, like if I struggled with something or something was easy for me. So let's say that I opened it up today. Now I believe it has already generated today's lesson. So I'll ask it to generate tomorrow's lesson so you can see what that looks like. There we go. So I just asked it to generate tomorrow's lesson, and it's going to go through the different files in here. It's going to find the instructions, it'll follow them, and it will generate tomorrow's lesson. There we go. And that's it. It basically just went through, read the instructions, created a little checklist for itself, followed those instructions to generate the lesson, and that's it. Added the new file to my folder. And so now this is tomorrow's lesson. As you can see, it follows the same format, gives me the vocabulary, asks me a bunch of questions. Really nice. So if you try to use something like maybe Duolingo or something like that, this is obviously much, much better because you can tailor it to whatever your needs are, right? If you're trying to study not just languages, but really just anything. Let's say you are just really interested in a type of architecture or in botany or in history or whatever it is, right? You could just adjust the instructions by telling it to adjust the instructions for itself. It'll update the instructions it uses to generate the lessons. And then you get to benefit from having lessons on whatever you want. And so it's pretty cool. And obviously it's not perfect, but I think it's still, for the amount of effort that you put into it, the value you get out is just kind of ridiculous. And so if you'd like to use this, what I asked it to do the other day was generate the instructions to set this system up for you, because this is set up for me based on my preferences. So this is the prompt that it generated, and it's like the installer for this setup. So it's going to ask you all the different questions that it asked me. And then at the end of this, it should generate something pretty similar based on the language that you're studying, what your preferences are, your learning style, all that good stuff. And then you can tweak it as you go along. This prompt will allow you to just answer a couple of questions, and it'll generate this structure for you in this whole setup to where you could just ask it to generate a new lesson for you each day. Then you'll complete it, it'll grade it, and then generate the next one based on that. So I'll include a link to this in the description below. I use it for language tutoring. You can imagine a bunch of different ways that you could use this same setup for all kinds of things, where normally you might just go on Google and browse a bunch of things, find a couple of PDFs, maybe find a book, find a bunch of videos. This kind of makes it a lot easier to have the system tutor you and adjust based on your needs, where you feel you need to focus more, where you feel that maybe you could skip that information. I think this is one of those areas where AI really shines in being able to provide you with a solution that is very specific and customized to exactly your needs. And if you decide to use Gemini CLI instead of Claude, you can do this for free. So that's pretty good. Also, I believe if you have any sort of subscription with OpenAI, so ChatGPT Plus or a student subscription or whatever, you can also get access to Codex. So you could use that one as well. Or if not, you could just sign up for Anthropic's API, get a key, and then just pay as you go. It's really cheap, honestly. It's much less than the $20 a month that you would pay for the subscriptions. If you just want to play with it, then I would recommend you try the Gemini CLI. If you like it, then either stick to that or maybe switch over to Codex or Claude, whichever one you like. If you happen to have a preference for any one of these, the links for everything are going to be in the description. Check them out, give it a try, give me feedback if there's something that you'd like to see me try next. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.